As our world changes, we'll keep you up to date with the latest information. News Talk KVNU 102 FM 610 AM.
KVNU News Time 5:05. I'm Bill Walter with this update brought to you by Whole Tree Care. A 32-year-old North Logan woman is headed to prison after being convicted of beating a child repeatedly. Cassie Angel Tolman cried and wiped tears away while being ordered to serve 1 to 15 years in prison. Tolman was sentenced Monday afternoon in First District Court. She was found guilty of child abuse, a second-degree felony, following a 3-day jury trial in September. In March 2019, a 10-year-old boy described being assaulted by Tolman. The boy had several injuries to his head. The victim told North Park police that Tolman was on the phone and became upset with whoever she was talking with. When she hung up the phone, she charged at the boy and his 6-year-old sister. She then entered the boy's room and started yelling and pushing him. During the assault, she kicked his head repeatedly and used a bag of frozen pizza rolls to strike him in the face. Tolman was arrested in March of 2017 after an 8-year-old child was found with multiple bruises all over its body. Officers later learned the defendant had become angry and threw the child to the floor. She then used a metal clothing hanger to whip the child. Tolman later accepted a plea deal, pleading guilty to 1 count of child abuse, amended to a Class A misdemeanor. She was later sentenced to 5 days in jail and 120 hours of community service. KVNU News Time is 5:06. KVNU weather, mostly clear tonight. Overnight low in the low 30s, and then sunny and unseasonably warm weather continuing, mid-70s tomorrow. Low to mid-70s on Thursday. It's 73 right now at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by Napa Auto Parts. Even though it's nice now, we know winter is coming. Get yourself prepared for winter with help from your 5 locally owned Napa Auto Parts stores. Get antifreeze, fuel stabilizer, ice melt, Rain-X, and Trico wiper blades at your 5 locally owned Preston to Providence Napa Auto Parts stores.
Remember last October's huge snowstorm that destroyed trees all over Cache Valley? Bobby and his crew at Whole Tree Care were the most popular guys in town.
Yeah, high five.
Not saying that will happen again. However, I just looked at the forecast for winter and it calls for snow. Snow can wreak havoc in your overgrown trees and shrubs, which can wreak even more havoc in your home and vehicles. Call Whole Tree Care before winter gets here. 760-6587. Ask about their radio discount. That's HULL Tree Care.
KVNU News Time is 5:07. Enrollment among first-year students at the 3 Utah State University residential campuses in Logan, Price, and Blanding is up by more than 14% this fall. Katie Jo North, USU's Executive Director of New Student Enrollment, is not surprised by the numbers.
I think we have seen that students want to be back, right? They want a college experience, and so it makes a lot of sense that we've seen them at our residential campuses that can offer that whole college experience, living on campus and attending events, and they want to be back in person.
She said since the start of COVID, the last 12 months was the first time their office has been able to get out and recruit.
I think also we've had some opportunities with some different scholarships to help students that financially haven't been able to come in the past as well. And so I think there's multiple factors of students wanting that college experience and then finally getting able to do some of that they haven't been able to do the last few years.
She said another popular program is the Utah State Promise, a needs-based program which covers the remaining tuition and fees for those students who are eligible for a federal Pell Grant. And 2 college wrestlers were mauled by a grizzly bear while hiking in Wyoming over the weekend. Brady Lowry of Cedar City and Kendall Cummings of Evanston, Wyoming, were out hunting for shed antlers on Saturday in the Shoshone National Forest just south of Cody when they were attacked. The grizzly first went after Lowry, according to a report from Cowboy State Daily. Cummings ran in and tried to pull the bear off Lowry, which resulted in the bear also attacking him. Both young men are on the Northwest College wrestling team. Fellow teammates August Harrison and Orrin Jackson were also out with them, but were not around at the time of the attack, according to a spokesperson for the college. A statement from the Wyoming Game and Fish Department said the pair of hikers encountered the bear at close range in heavy cover as it appeared to be a sudden surprise encounter. They were able to call 911 from an area near the scene of the attack and made it to the trailhead with the help of a local resident, a hunter, and others in their group. There, they met up with search and rescue members, and one of the injured men was airlifted to an area hospital. The other was taken by ambulance. KVNU News Time is 5:10. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
This is James Stevens with White Pine Funeral Services. We are humbled by and grateful for the tremendous support we have been shown since opening our doors nearly 2 years ago. So we just want to say thank you. On behalf of everyone at White Pine, first and foremost, thank you for allowing us the honor and privilege of serving you and caring for your loved ones. Additionally, thank you for voting White Pine the best mortuary in Cache Valley in both 2021 and 2022.
White Pine Funeral Services, here when you need us most.
Over budget by $2 million, withholding financial records from the County Council, structuring large financial appropriations without the Council's involvement or approval. This is the public record and is concerning to you, the hardworking taxpayers of Cache County. I'm Mark Ensign, and I'm a write-in candidate for County Executive. I'll restore order, trust, and transparency to the Cache County Executive's office with your write-in vote.
To learn more, visit ensignforcachecounty.com. Paid for by Mark Ensign.
This is former Cache County Executive Lynn Lemon. I wholeheartedly support Mark Ensign. I hope you will make the extra effort to write him in for County Executive.
Hi, this is Ashley from LSS Insurance. Are you getting 3 or more calls a day about Medicare? Telemarketers that offer an amazing Medicare benefit? That amazing offer may be available if you live in Florida or Arizona. At LSS Insurance, we offer the right plans for our area, and I guarantee you will get better benefits at a lower cost. It's time to enroll or change your Medicare plan. Call LSS Insurance at 752-9493 or go to lssins.com or come to our free third Thursday meeting.
I'm Larry Gelwicks, the getaway guru for Princess Cruises and Morris Columbus Travel with an exclusive blockbuster cruise deal. Get up to $400 per cabin, free spending money, plus cruise discounts up to 40% off. Kids sail free, free drinks, free Wi-Fi, and free prepaid gratuities on select Princess Cruises to Hawaii, Mexico, the Panama Canal, and the Caribbean. For details, call Morris Columbus Travel.
Morris Columbus.
With the arrival of fall, potential heavy rainstorms, fallen leaves, and debris, the Cache Stormwater Coalition would like to remind you of a few things to be mindful of. Clean out all the leaves and debris from your rain gutters. Use a broom or rake to remove leaves and debris from the top of storm drains, as clogged storm drains can lead to flooding. Don't keep piles of yard waste in your yard, on the sidewalk, or street. Use a green waste recycle bin, and check with your local city office on where to place collected leaves for pickup. And when it snows, remember to keep the snow away from curb and gutter and storm drains. We can all make a difference if we do our part. Brought to you by the Cache Stormwater Coalition.
Mommy, look over there, there's cows, Mommy. Look over there, there's sheep and chickens. Mommy, look over there, there's baby horses. Mommy?
Yes, Max?
Do you live on a farm?
Oh, Max, we live in Cache Valley, and it sure seems like a farm sometimes.
Do you value Cache Valley's unique open areas and miles of untouched lands? You can help preserve it. Vote yes on Proposition 1 on November 8th. Brought to you by Cache Open Space. See us online at cacheopenspace.org.
Feels like Tuesday. Tuesday has no feel.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Thanks again to broadcasting legend Al Lewis for joining us in Hour 1. That was a real honor for me to get a chance to speak to him as a guest on the show as opposed to a friend and coworker here at the station. And man, what a career. So many memories for a lot of us dating back to our childhood. 50 years, Al Lewis celebrating his 50th anniversary this year. With KVNU as the someone I think who will always be known as the voice of the Aggies and Cache Valley at large. So Thanks again to Al. If you missed that, of course, every episode of For the People is available via our podcast feed. We use the Podcastics service. Simply search Podcastics and KVNU's For the People. You'll find that feed. You can subscribe there using your podcast app of choice to download on your mobile device and more, and never miss an episode. That episode, hour one of today's show, will be available by this evening. So if you missed our time with Al Lewis celebrating again his 50th anniversary here at KVNU, be sure to listen via the podcast. Last night, the debate everyone was waiting for took place. It was a good debate. I'm saying that as someone, longtime listeners of the show know, I'm a debate skeptic. I'm not sure of their usefulness. I don't think they change hearts and minds. I don't think undecided voters tune in. I mean, there's a lot of data to support why I think that, but they are tradition. They do happen. So even as a debate skeptic, I will say last night's debate was important. There wasn't a lot of policy between Senator Mike Lee and independent candidate Evan McMullen. A bit here and there, but most of it was really an opportunity to see them go after each other, which always makes for good fireworks. But really, I think more importantly, and for those who maybe are undecided and were tuning in as we broadcast it live last night, 6 to 7 p.m., I think everyone got to see two very different people with two very different approaches to politics, to public policy, to lawmaking. That is a good thing, I think. It's really this is an important race, and there is a lot on the line going forward for Utah, for the nation, and I think last night voters got to see two very different people approaching things in two very different ways, despite the lack of real policy discussion, which you can blame on the moderators. You can blame moderator Doug Wright did try a couple of times during the debate to get things in a policy direction, but neither candidate took the bait. Both candidates took an opportunity each to dodge a question. Senator Mike Lee was asked a question about his position on a Club for Growth ad that has been running here in Utah, that has been pulled by several television stations and condemned by ad watchers nationwide as a very dishonest ad, and it was. Club for Growth is, they're one of Lee's biggest donors, so of course he's not going to criticize them. That's why he dodged the question last night. But they're known for this. Taking liberties is a nice way to say it. Being outright dishonest is a mean way to say it. But it was an ad that edited some audio of Evan McMullen, or some comments of Evan McMullen in a way that made it sound like he was saying something he never said. And they had millions of dollars to run this ad. It's been pulled again from 3 of the 4 major television stations, and as far as I know, has not been turned into a radio ad as of yet. But so Mike Lee dodged that question. He acted like the question wasn't even asked. He just took an opportunity to go after McMullen. And then he did say, when pressed by the moderator, look, my ads, the ones my campaign is running, talk about me, not my opponent. But he never answered the question as to whether he would condemn this dishonest ad running in his favor through the Club for Growth PAC. Evan McMullen dodged a question on some of his previous positions on abortion, specifically. He just, as Mike Lee did at one point, just kind of ignored that the question had been asked and went on to say what repeat his campaign's website documents and things like that, stating his position now on the issue. So both candidates took that one chance each to dodge a question, but otherwise they answered the questions, and they did, I think to some extent, redeemed Utah after Congressman Burgess Owens' embarrassing decision last week to skip debate entirely, the only debate he was going to have with his opponents, and blamed it on an editorial cartoon from the Salt Lake Tribune that was more than a year old. That became national news and was embarrassing to see. Last night, I think, redeemed us as a state as far as a state that can field candidates who take this seriously. So it was a good debate, I think. Things kicked off. We've got some highlights we'll run here for you, including the biggest applause moment of the night. The crowd was cheering and booing, and moderator Doug Wright was getting really irritated with it because they are on a tightly timed schedule due to this being geared towards television broadcast and radio broadcast. Of course, you know, if you listen every day, we have a schedule to keep to ourselves, and so they couldn't go over, and the crowd was taking up a lot of time with cheering and booing. It sounded very pep rally-ish at a certain point, which, honestly, folks, don't do this. It's just irritating for everyone involved, including the candidates and the moderator, but more importantly, the audience listening at home. But it happened, and the biggest moment of the night, we'll bring you the highlights of that as well. But here's where things started. The debate began with a moderator asking Evan McMullin and Senator Mike Lee, in essence, what do you bring to the table? As the nation faces several crises, so does Utah. And Utahs are unique to Utah in many ways, but also not unique compared with other Intermountain states in many other ways. So going forward, what do you bring to the table to help address some of these things beyond just, the partisanship that seems to dominate Congress these days? And challenger in this race, independent candidate Evan McMullin, answered first.
Well, thank you very much, Doug. And I want to recognize my wonderful wife, Emily, who's here with us tonight. And our 5 kids have been a tremendous support to me over the past year-long campaign. Look, I think tonight we're going to hear 2 very different visions for representing Utah in the U.S. Senate. My opponent, Senator Lee, believes that the world should be seen through a prism of partisanship, that it's always Republicans versus Democrats. It's always us versus them. These are the broken politics of Washington. He'll tell us they can't be changed. But I'm here to say it doesn't have to be this way. I'm running to represent and to offer an alternative that I believe is more consistent with the values and interests of our state. I know that we as Utahns and Americans have far more in common than we do in difference, and that we can overcome problems by finding common ground together. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I'm running as an independent because I think it's time to start putting Utah first.
McMullin also said in his opening remarks that the inflation rate and debt and deficit would be high priorities for him. Second to answer the question, opening the debate last night was incumbent in this race, Republican Senator Mike Lee. His response to the question, what do you bring to the table?
Thank you, Doug. Thanks for moderating this tonight. Thanks to the Utah Debate Commission and for UVU for hosting us. Grateful to be joined tonight by my wife, Sharon, and 2 of our 3 children. Our third is in Kentucky. He's joining us virtually. I've got a lot of my siblings, my mom and my stepfather here as well. You raise an important question about the purpose of government. The purpose of government is fundamentally to protect life, liberty, and property. More to the point, the purpose of the federal government, the government we'll be discussing tonight, is specific. It's limited. The federal government has become too big and too expensive because it was doing too many things for too long that it was never intended or designed to do. The runaway inflation that we've seen in recent months, with the average Utah family having to shell out an additional $949 every single month for their basic living expenses. It's entirely attributable to Washington, D.C. having lost scope of its purpose, and because of the runaway inflation brought about by Joe Biden and the Democratic Congress. We need to turn this around. I've learned a few things over the years about how to unravel it. I'd welcome the opportunity to continue doing that. And with that, I'll be asking for your vote at the end of the night.
That, again, were the opening remarks from both candidates, McMullin and Lee. And things stayed calm for about that long. The very next question set things off in a direction in which you got to see these 2 candidates in a fiery, heated debate with candidates demanding apologies from each other. Senator Mike Lee at a certain point saying, "How dare you, sir?" It was feisty. But again, it really illuminated the differences between the 2 candidates, and that's one of the reasons I'm critical of debates in the past. So highlights from last night's Utah State Debate Commission, United States Senate debate continue right after this.
This is Jay Allen with Allen Mortuaries. From our family to yours, thank you for voting Allen Mortuaries Best Funeral Home of Northern Utah and Best Funeral Home of Cache Valley. We sincerely appreciate the confidence and trust your family has given us over the past 83 years. When you trust us with the final preparations of your loved one, you get the kind of caring, personalized service you can only expect from a family-owned funeral home. It's our family serving yours. Voted Best Funeral Home of Cache Valley in Northern Utah, Allen Mortuaries. Then, now, always.
Utah has a whole lot of water problems, and we don't have a single representative in the Utah legislature with expertise in water. I want to change that. Water sets the foundation for our quality of life. Water is critical for so much of our economy, and water has so many implications for our health and recreation. I'm Patrick Belmont. I'm a water scientist, and as your representative in the Utah legislature, I'll protect our water here in Cache Valley. Vote to protect our water. Vote Belmont for Utah legislature. I'm Patrick Belmont, and I approve this message. Paid for by Belmont for Utah.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Bringing you highlights from last night's United States Senate debate, organized by the Utah Debate Commission, a nonpartisan nonprofit group here in the state of Utah. This is the last debate of their schedule this year. They've hosted debates in every congressional district, with the exception, of course, of District 4, where Congressman Burgess Owens elected to skip the debate, blaming it on a 13-month-old editorial cartoon from the Salt Lake Tribune. It was a weird moment. Last night's debate, I think, redeemed us as a state. It was a robust debate. It was lacking on policy, as I've mentioned, although there were some bits and pieces here and there. It was mainly the two candidates going after each other in a way that it wasn't really petty or insignificant. It was to me, a debate that really laid out the differences between the two. For those undecided voters out there, if they were watching, unfortunately, data suggests that undecided voters don't watch events like this, but they do hear about them. So hopefully they'll tune in and maybe watch. But the two candidates did a good job of painting themselves and their opponents in different lights, in very eloquent ways at times, and I was impressed, to be honest with you. So before the break there, we played you the calm parts of the debate, which was about the first 4 minutes. After that, things got fiery, and we've got some of the highlights for you. If you missed last night's debate, you can watch it via YouTube. The Utah Debate Commission has a YouTube channel. You can watch the entire hour-and-a-half-long event, so with the final half hour being the Q&A both candidates hosted with the media only. The first hour being what we broadcast last night here, the debate itself. The second question in the debate is where things took a fiery turn. The second question was about election integrity, and of course, this was McMullen's opportunity. Senator Mike Lee's baggage in this election is his unfortunate decision to get involved, at least to some extent. He says very little. His text messages that were released by CNN after a public records request imply maybe a little more than he's admitting to, and that's been trouble for him to navigate. Text messages with Chief of Staff, White House Chief of Staff at the time, Mark Meadows, and others saying, Sydney, the Kraken as she was known, had some good ideas. Turns out she didn't. And that pursuing this alternate electors plan to get states to help overturn the results of the election might be something to pursue. Senator Lee saying he'd worked on it 14 hours a day in a text message exchange where he was upset that President Trump had criticized him for not doing enough to overturn the election. It was McMullen's opportunity, but Senator Lee also took it as an opportunity as well to at least attempt to clear the air. Here's what Senator Lee had to say in response to a question, which was simply this. When it comes to this conspiracy, the big lie as it's known, of election fraud that didn't happen, it's created a lot of doubt. So the moderator asked last night a simple question. Did President Joe Biden fairly win the 2020 presidential election? Senator Mike Lee's response first.
Yes, Joe Biden is our president. He was chosen in the only election that matters, the election held by the Electoral College. It was on that basis that I voted to certify the election results. The Electoral College cast its vote. Joe Biden won that. Now, as to whether there were errors, as to whether some states might have conducted their elections better than others, there's always room for debate and questions about that. Some people expressed concerns about the number of states using universal mail-in balloting for the first time in 2020. Unlike Utah, they hadn't tested it out. In Utah, we've got these signature verification protocols. We've got elaborate procedures for going through the voter registration rules to make sure that the wrong people who have died or moved out of state, aren't voting. In other states, there were open questions about that, about ballot harvesting and things like that. But ultimately, what matters is the Electoral College, and the Electoral College won. I would add here, it's absolutely essential that the authority to conduct elections remain in state hands, never consolidated in federal hands where the risk of corruption is great. On this, my opponent and I disagree. My opponent has expressed support for legislation backed by the Democrats called S1. S1 would consolidate excessive authority over elections in the federal government. It would do so, moreover, in a way that would virtually cobble the states in their ability to enact voter security measures like voter ID. This is a bad step. We should shun it like the plague.
Mr. McMullen.
Well, I certainly think it's important that we protect voters' rights and that we protect the peaceful transfer of power, Senator Lee. But for you to talk about the importance of the Electoral College, I think is rich. I think you know exactly how important it is. And I think you knew how important it was when you sought to urge the White House that had lost an election to find fake electors to overturn the will of the people. Senator Lee, that was the most egregious betrayal of our nation's Constitution in its history by a U.S. Senator, I believe, and it will be your legacy. Senator Lee is still casting doubt.
Please.
Look,
Ladies and gentlemen, you just took about 7 or 8 minutes away from the candidates. We're here to hear them.
Senator Lee, you advised spurious so-called legal efforts to mislead tens of millions of Americans that the election had been stolen. And congratulations, you succeeded. As recently as this year, and even tonight, you're still casting doubt on the legitimacy of the election. You're doing a tremendous disservice to this country, Senator Lee. You have betrayed your oath to the Constitution with this. It is and for this state, Utah, that was founded by people like my ancestors and yours, who sacrificed greatly to finally realize true freedom, for you to represent this state and to cast away, to abandon, to throw away 14 generations of American leadership, I think is a travesty.
That was just the first fireworks moment of the night. The next was, well, you can hear it for yourself. Senator Mike Lee, of course, smartly asked for a rebuttal time period, and the moderator granted it. Then McMullen asked for one. It was granted. Then Lee asked for one. It went back and forth like this until finally this exchange occurred, which has made national headlines today in a brief 1-minute-long video clip. Here's how things wrapped up in this debate about election integrity and the big lie.
There is absolutely nothing to the idea that I would have ever supported, ever did support a fake electors plot. Nothing. There's not a scintilla of evidence suggesting that, and yet you continue to insist that with a cavalier, reckless disregard for the truth. This is sad. This is troubling. It's also entirely consistent with your adopted political party. You have sought for, actively courted, and obtained the endorsement of the Democratic Party. You've raised millions of dollars from Act Blue, the database on which far-left, progressive, socialist, democratic donors can be found. And then you have, in the last quarter alone, spent $1.6 million feeding the Democratic industrial complex. So it's not surprising to me that you would come here today and spout not only lies, but lies that are specific to the leftist cause, lies that are specific to the Democratic Party, and lies that certainly are not applicable to me. Yes, there were people who behaved very badly on that day. I was not one of them. I was one of the people trying to dismantle this situation, trying to stop it from happening, because I believe in this document written by the hands of wise men raised up by God to that very purpose. I followed it, I studied it, and I defended it to a T.
You'll have 30 seconds here in a moment.
For you to suggest otherwise looks right in the face of truth and in the face of the Constitution. How dare you, sir?
Mr. McMullen, you have 30 seconds. Rebuttal.
Look, Senator Lee has been doing this thing with his pocket constitution for the last several years. Senator Lee, it is not a prop. It is not a prop. Please. Senator Lee, the Constitution is not a prop for you to wave about and then when it's convenient for your pursuit of power to abandon without a thought. That's what you've done with that, okay? If you're committed to the Constitution, then stand up for our free and fair election. Stand up for the peaceful transfer of power. You did so. You voted to certify the election in the last moment. In the same way that someone knows a plot that isn't quite working out ought to abandon it, that's what you did. But look, Senator Lee is retreating to a safe space. Again, these are his broken politics of right versus left, Republicans versus Democrats. Senator Lee, you know I'm not a Democrat. You're not worried about that. You're worried about the fact that I'm an independent and that I'm building a cross-partisan coalition of Republicans, Democrats, and independents and members of third parties to replace you and to stand up to your broken politics and those of the party bosses and special interests who line your pockets. That's what I'm doing, and I know it frightens you because if you can keep us divided, then that's how you hold on to power. You're used to that. But we're building a cross-partisan coalition to replace you, Senator Lee, and it must be done.
For what it's worth, McMullen's line, the Constitution is not a prop, is now trending on Twitter 12 hours almost after the debate began last night. Those were the fireworks moments, the most entertaining moments, and I think the moments that really illuminate the differences between these two candidates. But if you are undecided, if you are on the fence about either one of these candidates, you won't hear me say this often, but watch last night's debate if you can. Listen to it. We've got it on our podcast feed. You can watch the video so you can see facial expressions and more, which were kind of funny at times, at the Utah Debate Commission's YouTube channel. And this was a good one, I think. Fireworks are fun, but more importantly, the candidates really distinguish themselves from between each other. And that's what these events are supposed to be about, and unfortunately so rarely are. Last night proved an exception to the rule. It was a good debate. Check it out. I've linked to it on our Facebook page. We'll be back with more of KVNU's For the People right after the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 5:37, and the news is brought to you by You and I Furniture. As you were listening on For the People to the debate last night from the Utah Debate Commission, the gloves came off in the debate between U.S. Senate candidate Evan McMullen and incumbent Senator Mike Lee of Utah. That was also heard on News Talk KVNU. One question submitted was, did the candidates feel that President Joe Biden won the election fairly? Here's what Mike Lee had to say.
Yes, Joe Biden is our president. He was chosen in the only election that matters, the election held by the Electoral College. It was on that basis that I voted to certify the election results. The Electoral College cast its vote. Joe Biden won that. Now, as to whether there were errors, as to whether some states might have conducted their elections better than others, there's always room for debate and questions about that. Some people expressed concerns about the number of states using universal mail-in balloting for the first time in 2020. Unlike Utah, they hadn't tested it out.
Lee said his opponent has expressed support for legislation backed by Democrats that he said would consolidate excessive authority over elections in the federal government and would diminish the state's ability to enact voter security measures like voter ID. McMullen accused Lee of trying to overturn the election.
Well, I certainly think it's important that we protect voters' rights and that we protect the peaceful transfer of power, Senator Lee. But for you to talk about the importance of the Electoral College, I think is rich. I think you know exactly how important it is. And I think you knew how important it was when you sought to urge the White House that had lost an election to find fake electors to overturn the will of the people. Senator Lee, that was the most egregious betrayal of our nation's Constitution in its history by a U.S. Senator, I believe, and it will be your legacy.
That statement brought both cheers and boos from the audience at Utah Valley University. Lee said the accusation is not true and said McMullen owed him an apology. A 24-year-old Logan man accused of trying to meet up for sex with an undercover police officer has been denied bail. Arias Holman was arrested last Tuesday after allegedly driving to a prearranged location where law enforcement was waiting. Holman appeared Monday morning in First District Court. He had been charged with 12 felonies, including attempted rape and sodomy on a child, enticing a minor by internet or text, and sexual exploitation of a minor. Cache County Deputy Attorney Ronnie Keller explained how Holman allegedly messaged the Logan City police officer who was posing as a 13-year-old girl. He arranged to meet Tuesday after sending multiple messages that were sexual in nature. When law enforcement questioned Holman, he allegedly admitted to being attracted to minors and viewing child pornography. He also had condoms in his possession. Judge Spencer Walsh refused to grant Holman bail. He ruled there was substantial evidence to show the crimes were committed and the suspect posed a danger to the community. And take note, the Utah Jazz evidently need a new hashtag. The team's long-used hashtag, Take Note, was used by Apple CEO Tim Cook in a tweet on Tuesday, accompanied by an Apple logo emoji. It raises questions about how the phrase will be used in the NBA team's marketing plans going forward. Apple unveiled the latest innovations with its iPad and Apple TV products on Tuesday. Cook's early morning tweet with the hashtag and a short video that also made use of the Take Note phrase was basically the kickoff to his company's announcements. KBNU News Time is 5:41.
Recently, UNI Furniture took a call from Best Furniture, and they asked UNI to take all the display furniture from the Las Vegas Market Show. Because it's all display furniture, it's deeply discounted, and it's on sale now. Swivel, reclining, accented lift chairs, sofa loves and sectionals. And also, UNI just got a big order they placed over a year ago from Southern Motion, all at pre-inflation prices. You can take advantage of these sale prices and lay it away at no extra charge until the holidays. Big selection, great prices. That's why there's always a better buy at UNI Furniture in downtown Logan.
KVNU weather for tonight, mostly clear, low in the low 30s, and then sunny, mid-70s tomorrow, low to mid-70s on Thursday, but changes are in the wind for the weekend with rain showers, possibly mixed with snow by the end of the weekend, and cooler temperatures moving this way. It's 73 right now at KVNU. Call Whole Tree Care now to trim your overgrown trees before winter arrives. Call 435-760-6587. Ask about the radio discount. That's Whole, Hull, Tree Care. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
Clean it up and get it out before the snow flies. Don't wait another winter. Let DD Auto and Salvage pay you for that junk vehicle. DD Auto and Salvage makes it so easy and fast to get rid of your junker vehicles by paying you the most money possible. Pickup is available. If you have metal, DD Auto and Salvage in Logan wants to pay you today. Call 787-1204. That's 787-1204 today. See store for details.
We all have a friend like Evan.
Guys, could you spot me a few bucks for the game?
But what happens when it's time for Evan to pay up?
I don't have it right now, but you know I'm good for it.
Nobody likes a deadbeat. And chronic deadbeat Evan McMullen has raised millions of dollars for his special interest groups. But in true deadbeat form, instead of paying off the nearly $700,000 in debt from his presidential campaign, he took the money and paid his own company millions of dollars. Liberty Champions PAC is responsible for the contents of this ad.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. A smattering of headlines. I just wanted to use that word, a smattering of headlines from around Utah and the nation. And one we'll start off with here from the radio world. This was a shock to most people who happened to hear the program Friday night here or wherever you might have been listening from. But longtime broadcaster Jim Bohannon announced that, beginning yesterday, a man named Rich Valdez would take over the long-running Jim Bohannon show on Westwood One. That started yesterday, but all of this came after news. Jim had said earlier in the week on his show that he was going to retire. He said after nearly 30 years, he was stepping down from his national nightly radio show, and he was going to he said on Monday of last week, tune in Friday, I'm going to make a big announcement. And then in between that time, of course, there was a lot of speculation and things like that. And it was with, kind of, I don't know if public pressure is the right word, but there was a lot of speculation about why he was stepping down and where he might go afterwards, and things that we would all probably talk about if we were fans. So in response to that, he decided to make an announcement, which was that his cancer, diagnosed first in 2021, had returned. He was diagnosed with a very specific type of cancer in 2021 and underwent treatment, which his body responded to, he said. But he said recently he got bad news that the cancer had spread to his lungs and liver. And if you know a bit about the body and cancer, that is one of the worst prognoses you can get, being told that you've got cancer of the liver. That means it's, if not everywhere, soon to be. He said during his final program he lost about 100 pounds, but that his pain was well controlled and that his quality of life was high. And he did a very personal and positive final show last week. So this began for Bohannon as esophageal cancer, and then just progressed to other things. So this was sad news. Again, if you listen here, you heard it Friday. He made the announcement in recording his final episode on the 11th, and he is officially retired at this point. Sad news. This is a person that I remember listening to quite a bit over the years, here and there. Nightly shows were always more difficult for me to listen to, but I think second only to Limbaugh, Bohannon was probably one of the best radio entertainers, if you will, presenters, I think, and he'll be missed. And thoughts to him and his family. If you want to read more about this, a couple of things that I found interesting, including some biographical information about him I didn't know, I've posted to our Facebook page. In more lighthearted news, positive news, but important news, Utah State University announcing this week some really good news that enrollment among first-year students at Utah State University's 3 residential campuses, Logan, Price, and Blanding, is up 14% this fall. That's huge. Utah State University had, internally been concerned about this, of course, but they'd also recently been criticized a bit by, criticism is too strong of a word. This had been noted and discussed by legislators during funding committee meetings and more. It had been headlines around the state, and it's not something any university wants to see, especially as a multi-year trend, and that's what USU had been facing for 3 years in a row. Decreased enrollment. In fact, 1 year enrollment so low it set a record. Now they're obviously headed in the other direction, up 14%. And Katie Jo North, USU's Executive Director of New Student Enrollment, told CashValleyDaily.com that this was news they kind of expected. They'd been working hard, but it was better than expected. North said, I think we've seen that students want it back, college. Meaning, of course, or referencing, of course, the 2021-2020 school years where things were either a hybrid or completely online. But North said she said what they're finding is they want the full college experience. So she said it makes a lot of sense that we've seen them at our residential campuses and can offer that whole college experience. They're living on campus, attending events, and they want that to be back in person. Put it another way, North says they believe that this response and growing enrollment at USU in the residential campuses, at least, is a direct result of the pandemic and this not being an option for some time. So check it out. Full story by KVNU's Craig Hislop at CashValleyDaily.com. And finally, here in our headline grab bag, Governor Spencer Cox hosted an event Monday, overshadowed, of course, by the United States Senate debate last night. The event was Monday morning. It was in Salt Lake City, but it was live streamed, and there is a video of many of the presenters and keynote speakers. And the event was focused on social media, specifically social media and the mental health of Utah's youth. The governor himself spoke at the event, but on hand were many experts, panelists, and more to discuss what the latest research says about social media and to try to answer what is ultimately the biggest question when it comes to social media always. Is it good or bad for adults, for kids? What are the harms? What are the positives? It's hard to summarize this because the data basically says, it's conflicting. We're not sure yet. There are a lot of research conclusions that were presented at this event Monday that say, the connection, being able to share with friends, being able to interact with friends, even stories of suicide prevention, which was a big thing on TikTok. TikTok kids, Zoomers, as we call them, these were, at the time, 16, 17-year-olds who were experiencing suicide ideation or even a full-on mental health crisis. They learned to use hand signals and code words in 15-second TikTok videos that would let their friends and peers know, hey, I'm in trouble. There was criticism of this because parents were kept out by, this being hand signals and secret phrases or even a song that would play in the background that would tip those in the know, other teens, off. Parents and educators and other adults wouldn't have a clue. It just looked like a 15-second TikTok video, right? But researchers say this can actually be an important suicide prevention tool because oftentimes teens are very likely to talk to peers when they're having a crisis or suicide ideation when they might not speak with an adult. So that was determined to be actually a good thing, despite the fact that it worried, understandably, parents. On the flip side of that, Instagram. Data suggests, or research suggests rather, that Instagram is very harmful to teens' self-image, specifically teen girls, where things get pretty competitive as far as selfies and shots of yourself on vacation or at work, whatever it might be. It's always a beauty contest, and that, as we know from even the age of magazines decades ago, it can be very harmful. Instagram just kind of perpetuating that same harmful environment. So those are two of the items discussed. There was also a bunch of state representatives on hand to talk about what the state is learning through the Safe Utah app, through counselors and seminars and surveying being done at Utah schools. And it was pretty robust discussion, covered all the bases, despite the lack of clear conclusions. And you should check it out. I've linked to it on our Facebook page, and we'll be back with more of For the People right after this.
You're in the market to buy a home and dreaming of a new home you can fill with new memories. But homes just aren't in your budget. Or are they? Visionary Homes wants you to know you don't have to buy a used home. Buy new. Buy now with Visionary Homes.
As a trusted award-winning Utah home builder, Visionary Homes understands that your home is the center of your life, bringing friends and family together, creating memories you'll cherish forever. Buy new. Buy now. VisionaryHomes.com.
Visionary Homes.
Aegis Home Health and Hospice loves helping the people they serve. Aegis is a home health and hospice organization that lives by core values of character, experience, and trust. Every day, Aegis' goal is to help you with whatever your healthcare needs are and to do it wherever you need us to. Aegis, A-E-G-I-S. Aegis Home Health and Hospice. Call 723-9000 or find them at myaegis.com.
This is County Executive David Zook. Thank you for the opportunity to serve you. I'm working hard to keep Cache Valley safe with things like cell towers in Logan Canyon and tougher sex offender laws, to fix our roads, especially Main Street, to help you deal with inflation by keeping taxes low and tackling our housing and gas price issues, and to preserve our farms, water, and open space. This is David Zook, and I ask for your vote.
Paid for by the committee to make all your wildest dreams come true. And David Zook for County Executive.
I'm Larry Gelwicks, the Getaway Guru. Join me on The Travel Show every Saturday at 11 a.m., and I'll tell you where to go and how to get there with the best travel deals on the planet, including how to travel more and pay less, free this and free that promotions, and insider secrets on what the airlines, cruise lines, and hotels don't want you to know, along with your call-in travel questions. Every Saturday, 11 a.m., right here on News Talk 610 KVNU.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Some feedback from listeners throughout the show here on the first part of the hour, the highlights from the debate. This is an interesting, not tied to any specific, well, kind of tied to a specific part of the debate. I had said that I felt like this debate was one of the better debates I've seen in years, despite the fact that it wasn't really chock full of policy, which is supposed to be what debates are about. The reason I said that, so a listener challenged that. A listener said, well, of course you think it was one of the better debates because you got to air that clip of, that's now gone viral, even made cable news today, all of the networks of Evan McMullen saying when Mike Lee pulled the pocket constitution out, as he is known to do. For Evan McMullen said, you heard in the clip there, sir, the Constitution is not a prop. And then the crowd erupts in applause, and it's this perfect moment for McMullen. And Lee had some of his own, more muted than that moment, but still some zingers for him as well. One of my favorites when he said, I disagree with that, including the word and, the, and but. I thought that was kind of funny. It only got a limited titter from the crowd. I thought it was hilarious. So I think Lee deserves credit for that. But anyway, listener says, well, of course, you thought this was a good debate because you had that McMullen zinger that's now gone viral. The Constitution is not a prop, and you can play it, and it gets ears and eyeballs and all that. Sure. That's for us, for me, here on the radio, something to talk about. And why wouldn't you? But no, I accept the criticism because, normally I'm right with you, sir. I'm right there this is one of my main criticisms of cable news, is that they chase this stuff and it ends up being so superficial and so not informative. It can be informative. I'm not saying never. But a lot of the time on cable news, they are chasing the zingers and the fireworks moments and the things that will get people to tune in and stay tuned in for as long as they can keep them. That's the business they and we are in, admittedly. That's not why I say this was a good debate. I say this is a good debate because distinction was made. I'm so tired of debates where the two candidates stand up there and just read from their campaign websites. And so you get more of a sense of, well, someone's a good writer for them than you do of who they are and how they approach things. And last night, I think you got to see the temperament of these two people. I think we saw more of that from Senator Mike Lee than we've ever seen. I think you saw Evan McMullen, a newcomer to politics in Utah. Well, not newcomer, but doesn't have 12 years in the Senate like Lee. You saw how he handles adversity in events, and I think that distinction is going to help undecided voters make their decision if they see it. That's the challenge, because they tend to not turn in. It's people who have decided how to vote normally listening to these debates. Appreciate the feedback from a listener, though, and a chance to expand on that is always fun.